Welcome back to the Takeout. Illinois Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton has secured the Democratic nomination for Senate in her state. She won the primary about 7 points last night, pretty comfortably, looking to fill the seat of longtime Senator Dick Durbin. Lieutenant Governor Julia Stratton joins me now. Madam Lieutenant Governor, it's great to have you here. Congratulations on your victory. But as you know, in politics, you win the victory and you get on to work. So the biggest issue in the country right now, overwhelmingly, is the war with Iran. I'd like your attitude about what it is, what it isn't, and what it should be.
I'm sorry, about what?
The war with Iran.
Oh, yes. So, I think this is another example of where Americans woke up in the middle of the night and to a social media post from our president who, talked about an act of war. It wasn't something that anybody has asked for. It certainly wasn't what I was hearing on the campaign trail, where people talked about wanting access to health care and higher wages and making sure they can have affordable housing. This is a president who, didn't have a plan, doesn't tell us why he's doing what he's doing, just kind of on a whim takes action, and it's not in the best interest of the American people. So I've made it clear that my perspective is that I would not support any supplemental funding for this war, and certainly not a war that anybody has asked for.
During the campaign, you also said you want to abolish ICE because the agency cannot be reformed. So not change its procedures, abolish it entirely. No more ICE agents anywhere if you get your way. Is that correct?
Well, I've always said, for example, that we need, of course, border security, and border security can happen at the border. But what we saw with Operation Midway Blitz here in the city of Chicago and in the state of Illinois is we saw Border Patrol agents going down through downtown Chicago. We saw ICE agents in our communities after Donald Trump said that he was going after the quote unquote worst of the worst. But that's not who he went after. We saw tamale vendors and daycare providers, agents going into churches and places of business and even schools where we've saw a lot of activity. And so this is a time that I don't believe that this agency can be reformed. I believe that we need to start looking at what can we do with all of that money that that agency has, because what Donald Trump is doing is not about immigration. It's not about public safety. It's about trying to normalize the presence of the military on American soil. So let's really invest in a system that works to put people on a path to legal immigration. Invest in more immigration judges, make sure that we have community-based resources and social services, and not criminalize our immigrant neighbors.
Many Democrats, looking back at 2024 and 2022, wonder if the defund the police slogan became toxic. Do you have any fear, Madam Lieutenant Governor, that abolish ICE could be viewed with similar toxic points of view?
Well, what I can say is that we have talked about meeting this moment. And what I'm hearing from voters every single day is people are tired of the status quo. They're tired of a sort of go along to get along mentality. They want to see leaders who are going to meet this moment with courage and bold ideas. And that's exactly how I won this campaign. I didn't talk about how do we just maintain the status quo. I talked about what are the things that really reflect the real frustration people have with Washington right now. So whether it's thinking about the fact that we don't want these agents in our communities terrorizing our communities, and by the way, the trauma has continued, or whether we see a president who every single day is thinking about how to turn away, roll back our rights, our fundamental rights. We need to make sure that we have real fighters in Washington. And that is what I'm hearing from voters. And that's why I was successful in this election.
Is the current Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, a real fighter?
Well, I've already said that I wouldn't support Chuck Schumer for leadership in the Democratic caucus because I believe we need new voices and new energy to meet the moment.
Who would you support?
Well, we'd have to see who puts their name in the hat. I would hear all of that. But what I do know is that right now we need real fighters in Washington, and we need people who are going to be courageous leaders to stand up to a wannabe dictator in the White House.
And if you were to try to describe for my audience what you find less than compelling about Chuck Schumer, what would it be?
Well, I'm not sure that I need to fully describe it for your audience. I think what the overall sentiment that I am hearing from voters is Washington as a whole needs to stand up and recognize this is not a normal president. It's not even a normal person. And this is not a time that we need to sort of, give in or try to use some of the same tactics that might have worked with some other president. We need somebody who's going to speak out, make sure that they fight back, hold the line when we can hold the line, and not try to use traditional negotiation tactics. I'm a lawyer, and by background, I taught mediation and negotiation skills. I served as a mediator and had an alternative dispute resolution firm. And here's what I always know. You cannot negotiate with people who come to the table in bad faith. And so we don't need to try to negotiate and figure out how they're going to work with us when they are literally every day taking away people's health care, ripping food out of the mouths of hungry children, rolling back our rights, and punishing states like Illinois simply because we have we dare to stand up to this president.
The body that you hope to be a member of right now, this week, is debating something called the Save America Act. I'm sure you're familiar with that legislation. The president is pressuring Senate Republicans to do away with the filibuster so this can be passed. What is your attitude about the filibuster itself in different legislative priorities? Would you go to Washington and be part of the Democratic caucus that would seek to get rid of the 60-vote threshold so Democrats with a Senate majority of 50+1 could do things?
Yes, when we take back the Senate, I want to abolish the filibuster. I mean, look at all of the progress that has been prevented and put on hold because of it, whether it's common sense gun legislation, protecting reproductive freedom, protecting voting rights, which still continue to be under threat. And these are things that we've been able to get done in Illinois, by the way. In all of those categories, we have been able to have common sense legislation to protect these rights. And we're not seeing that happen in Washington. I want to bring the Illinois blueprint to Washington, D.C. And I believe that when we take back the Senate, that abolishing the filibuster will be one of the ways that we can get those big things done to benefit Americans all across the country.
Last question before I let you go. The governor, JB Pritzker, a big supporter of yours. Should he seek the nomination in 2028, would you endorse him?
Absolutely. Governor Pritzker would be a fantastic president, and we'll see what he decides to do. But he has done, the two of us together have really provided some real leadership here in the state of Illinois. We've been partners in governance for the last 7 years. And I can't think of, a better leader who has demonstrated how you think big, how you get things done, how you deliver for the people that you represent, and who leads with such courage and compassion. And I think whatever he decides to do, he'll be great at it. And I've been honored to work by his side.
Illinois Democratic Lieutenant Governor and Senate nominee, Juliana Stratton. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.